Hey, what you doing?
Well, we just thought we'd check out the Battle of Trenton tour stops.
There's a battle here?
Yeah, during the Civil War.
It happened on December 20th, 1862.
Can I come?
Sure, why not?
This is a Gibson County tax warrant dated July 25th, 1856. The Union soldiers arrived in Trenton by train in 1862. The trains that they came in on were very similar to the one on this tax warrant. The Union troops were in Trenton to protect the Mobile and Ohio Railroad. It was used to supply Grant's forces as he moved south toward Vicksburg, Mississippi. The largest Union force between Columbus, Kentucky and Jackson, Tennessee was located here. They arrived by train and took over the town. A Union soldier wrote in his diary, October 10, 1862, "We arrived at Trenton next morning at daylight, going there in boxcars used for taking cattle to Corinth, Mississippi, smelling anything but sweet."
So, let's start at this building. What happened here?
This was the site where the Union Hotel, or the Pierce Hotel, once stood. It was torn down in 1879 to make room for the present building, which was constructed by W.L. Smith and his brother, hence the name the Smith Building.
Yeah, on the brochure here it says it was here, in front of the Union Hotel, now site of the Smith Building, soon after Tennessee secession in 1861, that Anderson Davis, a strong Unionist, unfurled a U.S. flag he had purchased in Cairo, Illinois. Davis was soon surrounded by several Southern volunteers, being organized into units at Camp Trenton, and was told, "Such a rag couldn't float to the breeze in Trenton." Davis folded his flag and took it to his carriage shop and put it out of sight.
So, what's this place?
It's the Freed House. Can't you read?
It says here that this was the Odd Fellows Female Collegiate Institute, and it was located here in 1862. The young ladies of the school dropped their lunch baskets out the windows to the hungry Confederates as they passed. The building, a two-story brick structure, was occupied later by Federal troops as a guardhouse. During this occupation, it was destroyed by fire. Several years after the war, the property was purchased by a J. Freed, a Confederate veteran, and he built the building you see now for his family. Dr. Frederick C. Freed, who later lived in this house, donated his incredible collection of porcelain nightlight teapots to the city of Trenton in 1955.
So, what's this big old building?
This is the old Peabody High School.
Looks old to me.
Yeah, it was built in 1917 and was Peabody High School until 1979. Then it was renamed Peabody Place and turned into apartments.
That sounds cool, but what does that have to do with the Civil War?
It says here that during the Civil War, this is where Andrew College, a private school, was located. In our letter dated November 7th, 1862, we have taken possession of a large college building with ample room for more than 150 patients. Change of climate and water has produced some sickness among the soldiers, and about 20 are in the hospital, though but 4 or 5 require medical treatment. These are actual photographs of Andrew College. It later became the original Peabody High School. This building was torn down in 1917 and was replaced by the present building. This new building was Peabody High School until 1979, when it became the apartment building Peabody Place. This is actual footage of the Peabody High School about 25 years after it was built. This was filmed about 35 years after it was built. After the Battle of Shiloh and the fall of Memphis, the Mobile and Ohio Railroad through West Tennessee was used to supply the Union Army as General U.S. Grant made plans to move south toward Vicksburg, Mississippi. To protect this line of supply, Union troops were placed at points along the railroad to protect it from the Confederates who might attack and cut the line. In Gibson County, troops were located at Kenton, Rutherford, Dyer, Trenton, and Humboldt. The largest of these forces between Columbus, Kentucky, and Jackson, Tennessee, was stationed at Trenton. This is General Nathan Bedford Forrest. He commanded the Confederates during the Battle of Trenton. General Forrest used the Lexington Road, and they arrived in Trenton about 1 p.m. on December 20th. Families were surprised when the war broke out in their neighborhoods.
The Union troops, under the command of Colonel Jacob Fry, had a force of about 250 men in Trenton to defend the depot.
I think we're finally getting to the best part of the story, the battle. So, what happened here? This is a funeral home. Is this where they brought all the dead people?
No, this is where the story of Horace Lovins takes place.
Horace Lovins. That sort of sounds like Mick Lovins from the...
Anyway, Horace Lovins stood on that balcony and watched Confederate soldiers gallop down College Street and then onto High Street and gave a rebel yell as they galloped toward the depot.
Here it says the Confederates charged the Union position in 2 columns.
When they were within 100 yards of the sharpshooters, a deadly fire was opened on the Confederates from the advanced posts. In a short time, both columns were repulsed. The Confederates moved rapidly out of range of the Union guns to the right and left, completely surrounding the Union position. So, Elena, was this house here during the battle?
Yes, some of the citizens of the town watched the Confederate forces attack the depot from the roof of this building. It was first called Scrapes Folly because when James Scrapes first built it, he ran out of money for the construction and lost the house. It was then later renamed the Neal House.
A Federal soldier started a duel with a Confederate behind Worthington's tobacco stummery. They fired at each other about 10 times. On the 11th fire from the Confederate's gun, the head of the Federal soldier disappeared. The 2 combatants in the duel were Sam Piper and Sam Wells. Sam Piper died during the duel, and Sam Wells was killed shortly afterwards.
This was the residence of Mr. and Mrs. Edward Raines during the Battle of 1862.
Yeah, this says that according to granddaughter Lada Biggs Jetton, members of the family stood at the head of the stairs and looked through a small window toward the depot.
Other family members stood on the front porch of this residence and watched as the Confederates rode into town, and they heard the cannonballs scream overhead through the air from the guns on the hill near the cemetery.
The monument at the flag was placed by Miss R. N. Davis in 1895. It is inscribed Our Boys and has the names of 6 known Confederates as well as 3 unknown Confederates.
General Forrest places artillery near the northern border of the cemetery.
General Forrest ordered his command to bring up and post the artillery. This was done on an elevation south of the depot about 300 yards distant near the northern boundary at Oakland Cemetery. On the first fire from the cannon, the ball went over the depot and passed through the mill of James A. Harwood and landed by the side of the levee 200 yards west of the railroad. Colonel Fry reported that 1 shell passed through the depot near a large quantity of ammunition but did not explode. After a third fire from the artillery, white flags were seen waving from the Federal fortification. While the surrender was taking place, an alarm of fire was made at the depot. As it was too long after the shelling to have been caused in that way, it was evidently an effort to destroy, by the Federal troops, the spoils of war. Forrest sprang forward and, drawing a sword, ordered the enemy soldiers to return and extinguish the fire on pain of death. The fire was soon under control.
This must be the old depot. Yes, I finally got one right.
No, you didn't. The original depot was burned down by Forrest.
So what is this?
This building was built to replace the original that was destroyed in 1862. It was built in 1912 to replace the first one.
Yeah, this is a drawing of what the depot looked like on September 13th, 1862. Here. This was in Harper's Weekly, which is a newspaper.
This drawing of the depot was in the newspaper Harper's Weekly, September 13th, 1862. Within a few months, the depot in this picture was destroyed.
Is this where the Union forces surrendered?
While the preliminaries for surrender were being arranged by his staff officer, General Forrest went forward to the group. Colonel Fry asked about the terms of the surrender. Unconditional, General Forrest said. Colonel Fry remarked that his sword had been in his family for 40 years. Keep it, Colonel Forrest said. But, he added, I hope, sir, when next worn, it'll be in a better cause than in an attempt to subjugate your countrymen.
Captain Anderson of the Forrest Command took all the bonds and oaths of allegiance which the citizens had been forced to sign, piled them in the courthouse yard, and set them on fire. Among the stores captured by the Confederates was a fine imported sword of Damascus steel. General Forrest had the blade sharpened at both sides to a fine point and carried it throughout the rest of the war.
This was the residence of Robert Seat, an early merchant in Trenton's history. He and his 11-year-old son, William, lived here. William was also famous.
What was William famous for?
We'll get to that later.
After the battle, young William Seat went to the courthouse to see the excitement and celebration of victory. He saw General Nathan Bedford Forrest sitting high on his horse. In his excitement, he ran up to his horse and blurted out, "Can I join your army?" From his high position on his horse, General Forrest turned his head, looked down, and said, "You little scamp, go back home to your mother." The young Seat grew up to serve as mayor several terms. The last terms, he was past the age of 90. He died in 1950, a few weeks before his 99th birthday. Most of the night of December 20th was spent paroling the prisoners, whose numbers had swelled to as large a number as the entire Confederate force. In doing this, Forrest magnified the size of his army. One item captured that Forrest cavalrymen wouldn't let him destroy was counterfeit Confederate money. They said that they could play poker with it just as well as gold. General Forrest reported that he lost 2 men killed and 7 wounded. The enemy, 2 killed and over 700 prisoners captured. Colonel Fry stated in his report that he lost 1 killed and none wounded. The next morning, after the capture of the depot and before General Forrest ordered it burned, he allowed the citizens to help themselves to the immense stores of provisions and ammunition that were located there. T. Lee Wells came out of the depot with 1 rifle and 2 good shotguns, about all he could carry, and going uptown he met John Seat peddling ginger cakes and persimmon beer. He soon got Seat in the back of the Oppenheimer store and struck a trade. Wells was to give Seat a shotgun for all the ginger cakes and beer that he could consume on the spot. Wells did his best to greatly diminish the stock of ginger cakes and beer before he got through. Years later, Wells would write, after that he had not particularly wanted beer and ginger cakes again. The surrender of the Federal force resulted in not less than 400 prisoners of war, 1,000 horses and mules, 20,000 rounds of artillery, and 400,000 rounds of small arms ammunition.
So this brings us to the courthouse.
Yes, the courthouse standing in 1862 was built in 1841 and torn down in 1899. The current courthouse was built in 1901.
It says here that if Colonel Fry had taken up his position in the courthouse and barricaded the streets leading to it with cotton bales, the Confederate artillery could never have reached him, except through the houses of friends.
These are actual pictures of the Gibson County Courthouse as it looked during the Battle of Trenton. Early Sunday morning, December 21st, after burning the depot, General Forrest resumed the advance along the Mobile and Ohio Railroad north toward Union City.
Well, this is the end of our tour, the Confederate Monument.
This monument was erected by the Russell Hill Chapter, United Daughters of the Confederacy, and was dedicated in 1907. Originally in the center of the street, it was moved to this site in 1960.
Wow, Trenton, Tennessee has so much more meaning to me now. I didn't know about the Civil War battle or the people who was in it.
Yeah, a lot of historical buildings have been torn down recently, though. It's really sad.
Yo, I'm so happy to have taken this tour. I've learned so much about Trenton, and well, I made such good friends in such a short time.
After leaving Trenton, Forrest and his men captured Union City and then made their way back to the Tennessee River. At Parker's Crossroads, near Lexington, the Federal forces surprised Forrest and his cavalrymen. After fighting the Battle of Parker's Crossroads, Forrest and his army reached Clifton and recrossed the Tennessee River, where they had crossed 15 days earlier. The Confederate authorities declared the expedition a complete success.
So is the tour over?
Yeah.
Race you to my house.
Huh. Well, now that he's gone, do we go to Cotton's get some pie? Sure. Let's go.
Hey, no smiling. Your braces are glaring in the sun.
Well, can I come?
Sure. No. Sorry.
All right.
So that no.
No.
This was the resident of Robert.
The resident.
I didn't film that.
I didn't hit record.
I didn't hit record. All right, ready?
Place and made into apartments. Stop nodding. It's a little.
I'm sorry. I was nodding in agreement. Like that's interesting. Sure does look old to me.
Yeah, it was built in 19.
So, what's this big old building?
This is the old Peabody High School.
Oh God, I'm lost on it. Is this where they brought the dead? I think we're finally getting to the good part of this tour, the battle. So, what happened here? This is a funeral. Is this where they brought the...
Not a few.
This is a funeral home. Is this where they buried all the dead people?
I'm so.
Come on, guys. She tricked.
My leg! Okay.
And so goes the Battle of Trenton.
Stop it.
This was the residence of Mr. and Mrs. Edward Raines during the Battle of 1862.
Yeah, this says that according to granddaughter Letta Biggs Jetten. What's the last word I just said?
This was the residence of Mr. and Mrs. Edward Raines during the Battle of 1862.
Yeah, this says that according to granddaughter Letta Biggs Jetten. It's not Letta, it's Latta.
Wait.
So, this brings us to the White House. Dang it! God! Okay.
So, I think the tour's over now, so what do I do now?
Let's go to Cotton's and get some pie.
Oh, yeah.
Hey! Hello! What are you?
I love you.
I love you too.
Not you.